This morning, I'd like us to think about what Palm Sunday is about in a way that possibly we haven't done before in the 25 years that we've been doing Palm Sundays. When I was a youngster back at school, I really struggled. I hated school. I don't know if anybody else is like me, but I really didn't like school. And I found life was just very difficult. I just wasn't a happy youngster. And what I really wanted was some sense of wholeness, completeness. I just wanted some sort of sense of peace, I suppose, in my life. And looking back, when I came to understand that Jesus was the Prince of Peace, was the one who could give peace, it transformed my life. And I suppose peace is one of those things that everybody strives for. And when you look around the world at the moment, you think of places like Myanmar, you think about places like Bristol, you probably even think about places down your street or road where there is this desperate need for peace. So today I want to talk about peace and peacemaking, because that's, I think, what Palm Sunday is really all about. So we're going to expand that, and I'm going to share screen in a moment and share a song which I wrote some years ago now for assemblies around Easter time, and getting the youngsters to think about what Jesus was doing in riding this donkey into Jerusalem. I hope you'll enjoy this as a brief respite and an original song.
Down through the crowds, excitement in the air, long awaited, much debated, eagerly anticipated. Surely he's the one who was to come, bringing freedom from the Romans, bringing in the promised kingdom. Start the celebration, sing Hosanna to the King, for God Most High has poured his cup of blessing upon him. Branches on the palms wave like banners in the sky, as on the donkey Jesus rides with peace, his battle cry. All he has done points in the same way. He fed the masses, healed the lepers, opened eyes and freed the captives. Now his time has come, his victory to declare. Throne of David re-anointed, even death has been defeated. Start the celebration, sing Hosanna to the King, for God Most High has poured his cup of blessing upon him. Branches on the palms wave like banners in the sky, as on the donkey Jesus rides with peace, his battle cry. Come save now, Hosanna, come and save now, Hosanna, come and save now, Hosanna, come and save now, Hosanna. The plans of the crowd would soon turn upside down, not understanding what God's planning. The sacrifice is the beginning. Stop the preparation, sing Hosanna to the King, for God Most High would pour our punishment for sin on him. There upon the cross the Son of God for us would die. Salvation would be ours through Jesus' sacrifice. Jesus saves now, Hosanna. Jesus saves now, Hosanna. Jesus saves For God Most High has poured his cup of blessing upon him. Branches from the palms wave like banners in the sky, as on the donkey Jesus rides with peace, his battle cry.
But peace, how can peace be a battle cry? Well, I want to look a little bit at peace and peacemakers. There was a joke at one point where the Miss World competition or the Miss United Kingdom competition, there used to be this thing where they were asked, what would you like to see? What's your aspirations? And the answer was often given world peace. But what a wonderful aspiration. But the thing is, world peace, what does peace mean in the world? What really, most often it means the absence of something. So let's have a look at some of the things that peace could be in terms of the absence of hostility, of inequalities, the absence of conflict and anger, the absence of enmity, resentment, unforgiveness, hate, all of these things. If you got rid of those, there would be peace. But you see, that's not God's peace. So let's add God's peace in here and recognize that God's peace is not just the absence of something. So we'll move that. It's the presence of God himself. It's the presence of harmony, of acceptance, of security, understanding, generosity, forgiveness, friendship, ease, love. Wow, that's a fairly amazing lift when you look at it like that. And of course, when we think about Israel and God's peace, the word is shalom, and they even use it as a greeting, hello and goodbye. So let's have a look at the definition of shalom. The Hebrew word shalom means peace, harmony, prosperity, completeness, tranquility and welfare, and hello and goodbye as well. Such an amazing word. It's the presence of something that is real, something that is good, something that is positive. Not just the absence of those other things, because those other things cannot be present where these things exist. So let's have a look back at the scriptures, at the scroll, the Torah in Israel. And I'm going to look at some of the promises of God that God made to his people Israel. So in Leviticus, and this comes from a passage just after the section about the Jubilee year, where, as you know, I've been saying that we can link what's happening to us at the moment with that chapter on the Jubilee, Leviticus 25, but that's for another day. So let's look at chapter 26 of Leviticus and some of the promises. I will send you rain in its season, God says. And in a farming culture, that was so important, that the fruitfulness of the land would be there. I will send you rain in its season. I will remove the wild beasts from your land. So danger being sorted out. I will look on you with favor and make you fruitful and increase in your numbers. I will keep my covenant, my promises with you. I will put my dwelling place among you. I will walk among you and be your God, and you will be my people. What brilliant, brilliant promises God made to his people. But you may notice that there's a little gap in that. And verse 6 of Leviticus chapter 26 is really significant. And it says this: I will grant peace, shalom, in the land, and you will lie down, and no one will make you afraid. What a wonderful promise. I will grant you shalom, harmony, all of those wonderful, positive things. And of course, what we've been doing in the message to the people of Rome, the letter to the Romans, is looking at a place where the church was not working well together, that the church was divided and they were beginning to fight. There was a lack of peace in Rome at that time. And so Paul writes a letter to them, pointing out to them that the gospel of Jesus is for the whole world. It's for every individual too, and it's the gift of God. And at the end of the chapter that we're going to come back to after Easter, chapter 15 of Romans, we read this, and Gerard read it so beautifully to us. The God of peace be with you all. Please, Lord, let that be the case. May they come together in harmony and peace. And just before that, he said, may the God of hope, this message of hope in Romans, may that the God of hope fill you. So it's not an absence, it's a filling. Fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. And you'll see how that is so important later on. And that's the verse that we've been looking at almost every week since we began this series on Romans. But let's get back to Palm Sunday and this entry into Jerusalem by Jesus. Well, here we have a representation of Jesus riding the donkey, and there are the disciples and the crowd and the palms. Now, I'm going to take a little bit of a diversion in a moment, because we need to look at what the palms are about. But first of all, Jesus is riding into the city of Jerusalem, the capital city of Israel, this nation that we've just looked at. The name Jerusalem means the city of peace. So Jesus is riding into the city of peace. And he's riding on a donkey. Now he's fulfilling a prophecy that comes from Zechariah, chapter 9, verse 9. Rejoice greatly, daughter Zion. Shout, daughter Jerusalem. See, your king comes to you, righteous and victorious, lowly, and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. And then the prophet says, again, bringing in this theme of peace, I will take away the chariots from Ephraim and the war horses from Jerusalem, and the battle bow will be broken. He will proclaim peace to Jerusalem. Oh, no, not to Jerusalem, to the nations. He will proclaim peace to the nations. His rule, his kingship will extend from sea to sea and from the river to the ends of the earth. He's riding into the city of peace, but the prophetic word is talking about peace to the ends of the earth. And the Lord their God will save his people on that day as a shepherd saves his flock, and they will sparkle in the land like jewels in a crown. How attractive and beautiful they will be. You see, the prophet was saying that when peace rules, it's attractive. And certainly when I was a young lad, peace, the peace of God was attractive to me. And so Jesus riding into the city of peace on the donkey who proclaimed peace, the symbol of peace. Wow. But let's go on this slight diversion now. Why is it called Palm Sunday? Well, it's actually an interesting one, because it's only in the Gospel of John that we read about the palm branches. He says the palm branches, they took them and they went out to meet him. And they say, blessed is the King of Israel. Well, it's interesting because John is trying to make a really important point. He's showing that the crowd was expecting Jesus to become the king of Israel now. Psalm 118. Well, this is one translation of Psalm 118, and it's where the Psalms often come in today's thinking. Lord, save us. Lord, grant us success. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. From the house of the Lord we bless you. The Lord is God, and he has made his light shine on us. With boughs in hand, join the festal procession up to the horns of the altar. The only thing is that translation isn't actually a very good translation. Psalm 118 is much better translated by the King James Version, the New Living Translation, and the literal translation of Young's, where it says, take the sacrifice and bind it with cords on the altar. And of course, that is still a prophetic word about Palm Sunday. They were taking the sacrifice, the Lamb of God, and they would bind him with nails on the cross. And that sacrifice would be the source of their peace. It would be the source of the kingship. Over his head would be that sign saying, the King of Israel. But that doesn't take away from the fact that the crowd wanted a king in a different sort of way. And they were thinking back to the palms that were waved some 200 years before. Because back in the days of the Maccabees, there had been a revolt, and Judas Maccabees had led a revolt against the empire that was in control then. And there had been a short-lived empire. And during that time, on the 23rd day of the second month in the 171st year, the Jews entered the citadel of Jerusalem with shouts of praise, waving of palm branches, playing of harps and cymbals and lyres, and the singing of hymns and canticles, because a great enemy of Israel had been crushed. And that was a revolution that did not succeed because it was by force. It was by a military victory, and it was short-lived. Maccabees, actually the name Maccabees means the hammer. And that is not God's way. God's way is a way of peace, a way of harmony. And so that kingdom was overthrown. But what had happened during that time was that the palm, because of this entry into Jerusalem, had become the symbol of nationalist Israel. And this is a coin that was made some 200 years before Jesus. And on one side of the coin, there's the palm, and on the other is the vine. And there you see that the palm had become a symbol of Israel. So when Jesus was coming into Jerusalem, the crowd were wanting a victory over the Roman Empire. They were wanting a new Hasmonean kingdom where Jesus would become the new Judas. But this was not Jesus' way. And on this Palm Sunday, we had there palms and a donkey and a capital city of Israel that were pointing towards kingship. But what that did was it gave a challenge to Rome's empire rule, because Jesus was saying to them, you are not going to be the ruler of the eternal kingdom. I am. My rule will last forever. Your rule will be short-lived because it's not based on peace. But equally, with a donkey and prophecy and entering Jerusalem, the city of peace, there is this theme of peace which challenged the Jews because their desire was for this military victory over Rome. So you can see that Jesus was challenging Rome's empire, and he was challenging the Jews, and yet he was doing it in a way that was filled with love and compassion and peace. This showed his kingly rule, but also that he would be the one who gave his life, who was the Prince of Peace. Yes, they believed Caesar is Lord, but actually Jesus is Lord. That was the message to Rome. To Jews, the law and the prophets. But in the law, we had this wonderful blessing. You shall bless the sons of Israel. Say to them, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you, be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance on you and give you peace, give you shalom. That's there in the law. And what about the prophets? Well, we know this. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. The government will be upon his shoulders. His name will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, the Prince of Shalom, the Prince of Peace. So in the law and the prophets, there is this message of peace. And to Rome, there is this message of kingship. So as Jesus enters with this message of peace that challenges that which has gone before, the world's view of peace, what happens? Well, as Jesus approached Jerusalem, he saw the city and he wept over it and said, if only you had known this day what would bring you peace, but now it's hidden from your eyes. What's going on here? Well, Jesus is, in a sense, asking the question, what was Israel's identity meant to be? He's thinking back to the scriptures and Exodus, where Moses was told by God to say to Pharaoh, this is what the Lord says, Israel is my firstborn son. And I told you, let my son go that he may worship me. See, the answer to that question, what was Israel's true identity? It's the beloved children of God. And they had not worked out that identity in the way that God intended. They had sinned against God. They'd gone their own way. But another question might be, what was Israel's purpose? And in Exodus chapter 19, verses 5 and 6, although the whole earth is mine, God says, you, Israel, will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. So the answer about the purpose of God was that they were meant to share God's love and peace with the whole world, all the nations. And they had not done that. Israel was supposed to be God's children who shared his character, his love, and demonstrated his peace and spread it across the world. Well, let's look at that a little bit closer and think about the prophecy to Isaiah. Isaiah said this, let no foreigner who is bound to the Lord say, the Lord will surely exclude me from his people. See, God wanted everywhere to know that they were included in this peace of God, which passes all understanding. He didn't want anyone excluded. And he wanted to say to the whole world, their burnt offerings, your burnt offerings and sacrifices will be accepted on my altar, for my house will be called a house of prayer for all nations. God wanted the prayer in Jerusalem to reach and send people out into the whole world to spread the gospel of peace. And Israel had just not done that. Jesus entered the temple courts and he began to drive out those who were selling. You see, they turned it into this thing which was economic. They wanted it for themselves. They wanted it just to be about their economy. And Jesus said, it's written, my house will be a house of prayer for all nations. And you see, what Jesus was doing was he was weeping over Jerusalem because it had failed to be the city of peace for the world. And yet what he would do in the next week was going to turn the whole direction of things around from Jerusalem. So let's see what that might look like. Instead of everyone having to come to Jerusalem, he was going to send people out into the world bearing the Holy Spirit to take the gospel of peace. And these are the nations to which the gospel of peace went immediately after the Pentecost that took place after Jesus had died, given his life as a sacrifice, been risen again from the dead, ascended, and sent his Spirit. And then the direction went in a completely different way. And instead of it being all coming to Jerusalem, centered on Jerusalem, Jesus and the church would go out to reach the nations with the gospel of peace by the power of the Spirit. That's why Jesus wept over Jerusalem. And when I put it in the context of peace and peacemaking, just think about the Beatitudes. There, chapter 9 of verse 5 in Matthew, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God. It's the ones who take the shalom of God into the world who will be called the children of God. And of course, Israel was supposed to have done that. That was their mission. That's why they'd been called the Son of God. That's why God had rescued them from Egypt. But now God was going to do it a different way. And so as we turn now to look at Jesus and what his role in going into Jerusalem, in becoming the sacrifice who would set free the people of God to become peace for the whole world. Christ didn't take on himself the glory of becoming a high priest, but God said to him, you are my son. Notice sonship again. Today I've become your father. And he says in another place, you are a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. And Melchizedek was the king of peace, the king of Salem, of Shalom. And during the days of Jesus' life on earth, he offered up prayers and petitions with fervent cries and tears. In that scripture in Hebrews, we bring together the family of God, the children of God, the priestly nature of the church and of Jesus, and prayer for all nations. And so when Jesus said, the advocate, this Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, will teach you all things and remind you of everything I've said to you. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. I don't give as the world gives. So don't let your hearts be troubled and don't be afraid. This was the teaching that Jesus would give to the people in the temple in these next days after Palm Sunday. You see, when the lamb was chosen before the Passover, the lamb was chosen 4 days before the sacrifice was made. And the lamb would live in the family with the family for 4 days before the sacrifice was given. And during those 4 days, they would get to know the lamb, the sacrifice. And they would recognize that the lamb's sacrifice would be what gave them peace with God, what gave them the right to be peacemakers. And notice in that verse, I leave with you peace. Don't let your hearts be troubled and don't be afraid. what Jesus was doing. And you probably remember the Leviticus verse, which I brought up. This is Jesus transferring the mission from Israel to the church. In Leviticus, I will grant peace in the land, and you will lie down and no one will make you afraid. Jesus said, peace I leave with you, my peace I give you, to share with the world. You also, us, everyone who's listening here, the church across the world, are being built into a spiritual house to be a holy priesthood, to offer spiritual sacrifices that will bring peace to the world, acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. Verse 9, you are now the chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness, out of the absence of peace, the absence of those horrible things, into his wonderful light, the presence of God, the presence of harmony and love. So as those who cry, Abba, Father, or even our Father who art in heaven, we are called as God's beloved children to be priests for him, to be peacemakers, to bring God's peace into the world of harmony, acceptance, security, understanding, generosity, forgiveness, friendship, ease, and love. That is our role. That is our challenge, to be peacemakers in our street, wherever we go, to be peacemakers in the name of Jesus. And I want to finish with the prayer of Francis of Assisi, because it says it better than I could say anything else. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there's hatred, let me sow love. Where there's injury, pardon. Where there's doubt, faith. Where there's despair, hope. Where there's darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. And it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Wherever we go, our aim should be to bring the peace of God, which passes all understanding, the gospel of peace in Jesus. And as we bring that, we will have on one side the world and the difficulties and the troubles. But on the other hand, we have Jesus, the Prince of Peace, the King of Kings, who can give his peace to people and to us. So may we be peacemakers, and may we know the peace of God which passes all understanding. The wisdom that comes from heaven is first pure, peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. Peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. Amen.